The Bible isn't just a collection of ancient texts, it's a rich tapestry of narratives that speak to the human experience across cultures and centuries. Whether it's the courage of David facing Goliath, the faithfulness of Ruth, or the wisdom of Solomon, these characters embody virtues and struggles we encounter in our own lives. Join us in today's episode as we uncover how these stories are more than historical accounts. They're mirrors reflecting our own journeys, offering guidance, inspiration, and profound insights that continue to shape our perspectives and decisions today. Hey, friend, welcome to the Between the Pages podcast, where we explore navigating life's peaks and valleys with bold faith. Join us bi weekly as we dive into meaningful conversations with guests, team members, and community leaders. Together, we'll tackle topics that challenge and encourage, helping you live out your faith between the pages of everyday life. Welcome, friends, to the Between the Pages podcast, and we are talking about our best friends of the Bible, and I'm so excited because I have been loving the Chosen series recently. I truthfully think it has brought so much personality to the Bible, and if Dallas Jenkins ever wants to be on the podcast, let me know. You can slide into our DMs because that would be an incredible episode. But I just feel like I've been able to relate to the disciples so much more by thinking personality wise of Jesus has been a little sassy. He's got some humor. And I'm like, okay, all right. And now in my own walk with Jesus, I'm like, all right, you're up there snickering at me because I'm probably doing something you're like, really, really, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, I'm human. Give me a break. But I'm excited because Jenny, I'm excited to know who your besties are in the Bible,
I
who
like
you
this
relate
topic,
to
yeah.
the most. It's a fun episode as you guys kind of listen to our favorite Bible characters and our best friends that we relate to in the Bible. We want to know what your best friend is. So make sure that you head to our Instagram. Let us know on our upcoming posts coming up here after the release of this episode. And we would love to chat about that. But let's start, Jenny. First off, who is on round one draft pick for your Bible bestie?
We're starting right away in the beginning of the Bible with
Ooh.
Noah.
Wow, we're going back to ancient old times.
We are. I just think it's so cool if Noah and I just hung out for a while. We built some stuff together. We looked at the erosion patterns because I'm really into science, and if he was looking at
So nerdy.
I know. Like the deposition of where the soil is going, and just we'd build stuff together. I think Noah would be a really good bestie. Yeah.
The fact that you just brought in earth science
I
to
had
the
to.
podcast.
I had to.
Girl, it's summertime. You should not be thinking about earth science. You should be thinking about going to the beach or something. Okay, so Noah.
Yeah.
Primarily because you are crafty.
Yeah. I think on a deeper level, Noah didn't really care what other people thought. And he didn't want to live for the gratification of the other people around him. He and his family were just kind of we're going to do our thing. We're going to worship God. We're going to praise him. And people kind of, turned up their nose at him a little bit. Probably thought he was full of himself maybe a little bit. But, I mean, the Bible says that Noah was the only one on the whole earth that was willing to save pretty much, which is really sad to think about. But I'm wow, I just would want to be in his presence and follow him around all day and see how he helps people and how he reacts with people, and I don't know, it'd just be so
see
cool
you with
to
your little paintbrush following
Right.
him and being let me paint the art.
We're gonna be built next. Yeah. I just think it'd be cool to see how Noah lived his life, and he was really old too. He was 600 years old by the time that the flood happened. So just all of that wisdom and stories he would have built up in his memory, and just for me to sit, I'd want to put up a hammock on the ark. I feel like that'd be really comfy. And I love animals too, so I could just go around and help him out with the animals and follow him around with my little bucket and brush the horses or something, help him out on the ark. And just to see the way that he lived, and then even I was thinking about post flood too, how quiet it would be besides the animals. A flood just took over the whole earth, and then to just feel God's love through this rainbow in the sky. And then Noah just taking a deep breath thinking okay, now we're gonna, restart society pretty much. I would just love to pick his brain at what he was thinking and what he was feeling in that moment. Yeah.
Just, like, weird to think about, and it's interesting that you said that because, like, you think of, like, the Garden of Eden and how,
Mhm.
like, beautiful and untouched that was, but then you think of Noah after the flood, and you're like, "Huh." It's almost very similar, but you have one that's perfect and one that's about to be so broken.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, "Whoa."
And,
Like,
like
he was
yeah.
there from the very beginning of that broken
Mhm,
Eden.
mhm.
And it's like, you were there up until all the stuff started happening.
Right, right.
And yeah, wow.
I know, that's why I was like, "Okay, Noah's definitely on my best friend list."
The round 1 draft pick for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I love that.
What's yours?
Mine would be Simon Peter, later called just Peter,
Mhm.
and
AKA Peter.
AKA Peter.
Or Pete.
Um, I would probably call him Pete. Let's
Mhm.
be real, we'd be best buds. I think a lot of it comes down to he just sometimes just says it as it is,
He does.
and in The Chosen, he the actor in The Chosen for Peter, he just, like, will sometimes be so oblivious to some things, and then I'm like, "That's me." I relate to that so much, or he'll, like, lead. And you think of, like, Peter walking on water, and there's so many times where I am like, "Alright, God, like, let me walk on water, like, let's see what you can do," and, like, almost, like, challenge God
Mm.
in a way,
Mhm, mhm.
and I feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes in my relationship with God, but, like, "Alright, God, like, here's a crazy idea. Let
Take
me
it
walk
away.
on
Yep.
water." Like, "Okay, God, you have a crazy idea for boldly seeking. Make it happen."
Mhm, mhm,
And where are we now? Like, a dream come true being in his
mhm.
studio starting season 3.
I can see you and Peter just, like, hyping up Jesus too, just following him around and be like, "Go Jesus, go
Go
Jesus."
Jesus. And I think along with the walking of the water, Peter and I also relate in the sense of the second that he took his eyes off of God is
Mhm,
when he started drowning. And I think that that can go for anybody truthfully, but I feel it so much more like when I take my eyes off of God, I'm like lost in the wind.
mhm,
And I'm like, "God help me." And he pulls me back up again. There's also with Peter about like the a little shortly before they entered into Jerusalem for Palm Sunday, he
mm.
was telling Peter in front of all the disciples. I don't remember where he said this. I'm trying to think back to that chosen episode. But he says like Peter was the rock on which he's going to build this church. And I think
Mhm,
that almost like that commission of discipleship and something for me is like that calling to ministry, that calling to discipleship of being like, you know, Rebecca, in Duluth, this is where I'm gonna build a revival.
mhm.
I'm like, "Okay, that's scary. I'm gonna have to walk on water to make this happen." But I think in that sense, it's like almost like Peter being a visionary, especially after Jesus ascended into heaven and like kind of helping to like keep this movement going of the
Mhm,
church.
mhm,
And then also like really he was I wouldn't say he was necessarily like Jesus' right hand man.
mhm.
'Cause I think I mean, you get to the whole, um, like, "Can I sit on your right and your left?" And God's like,
Yeah,
"You're
yeah.
missing the point."
Right, right.
But I also think, like, Peter and Jesus had a special relationship,
Mhm.
and, like, I mean, the walking on the water, like, none of the other disciples did that.
Right,
But Peter's
right.
like, "I'm gonna challenge you.
Mhm.
Like, if you're truly God,
Yep.
make me walk on water."
Was he also the one that, like, cut the ear off of the soldier in the Garden of Gethsemane?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he was willing to, like, throw some hands up for Jesus too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was willing to get down and throw
Right.
someone to the ground
Yep, yep.
and protect Jesus. And I mean, you see that in their relationship, even in The Chosen. Like,
Mhm,
he was so protective of Jesus because he was like, I am learning so much. And he was challenging himself. And I think in a way, that's also where Jesus was like, Peter is the rock on which I'm going to build my church.
mhm,
Because he's motivating those people around him. I wouldn't necessarily, I motivate everybody around me. Like, I don't think one person can solely do that on this earth,
mhm,
because no one's perfect,
mhm.
but, like, just to hype up, like, our boldly seeking team, be like, "Hey, like, I'm not gonna force you to do anything," number 1. Number 2, I want it to be truly from the heart.
Right.
Like, if you have something to say, post it, write a blog,
Mhm,
let's make it a podcast episode, but, like, allowing people the space to bring their questions. And I
Mhm.
think that's what Peter also did.
Yeah.
And like you also saw Peter and Matthew and like kind of the whole like tax collector versus like
Mm.
in the chosen, like they had like a
Mhm.
very unique relationship because of just their class differences.
Mhm.
And I think you got that a lot in the disciples of their backgrounds and their classes. And but Peter being a leader had to be like, I have to show the way
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
how to love like Jesus. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I want to say I like, yeah, I'm just like that, but, like, I'm more challenged by that.
Mhm. Jesus picked those 12 people for a reason, you know? And even after Jesus died and resurrected, like, they still kept hyping him up and spreading the word, and I feel
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I would say that was my round
It's
1.
a good relatable one, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And he's also very sarcastic in The Chosen. Sometimes I think I'm also sarcastic.
Just kidding.
Just a little. Alright, round 2. What do
Round
we
2.
got?
So I was looking a little bit more into the story of Hannah, which is found mostly in the book of First Samuel. And Hannah was the mother of Samuel, but she was married to this guy who also had a second wife because they did that in the Bible times. And so
'Cause
I
they did that in the Bible
I mean,
times.
you know, so, like, so Hannah's married to this guy, but then there's another woman that's married to him, and she has kids, but Hannah does not. So I feel like if I was best friends with Hannah, I would just be able to hear her side of the story or, like, maybe just have some advice for her. I can't imagine having to have, like, share a husband like that, and then also just to have that sorrow of seeing, like, your husband with his second wife and their kids, and then, like, "Oh, I can't give kids to my husband," like, and she
Mhm.
wept over that. She was, like, very sorrowful and very, reflective on the part that, like, "Lord, why don't I can't provide children for my husband," and, like, that was huge in the Bible, right? If you didn't have a son to pass down your generations down to, it was like, Who are you then? Like, what is your use? What are you helping with?" But like in the second chapter of First Samuel, you can just see Hannah exalting the Lord, and she is weeping and she's sorrowful, but she's still giving that glory and that honor to the Lord, even in that time of like, okay, I don't have kids and like I don't know what my purpose is exactly, but like, Lord, I will still exalt you. I'm like, wow, like to have a friend like that who's not only loyal to the Lord, but who also I know is going to be loyal to me too is just like super, super powerful. And later on, she is pregnant with a child, and God blessed her with Samuel, her son. And since Hannah was so, exalting of the Lord before she had Samuel, she knew that, okay, Lord, if you're going to give me a child, I'm going to give him back to you in that sense. So, after Samuel was born, Hannah raised him, obviously. And then when he was old enough, he actually worked in the temple with Eli, another Bible character that we could talk about in a different episode. But just seeing like how devoted Hannah was, I would just wanna, like, soak up all that wisdom that she would have, and obviously, we'd throw the best baby shower for her because
Mhm.
she's been wanting a kid for
It'd be a
so long.
party. That's
Yes,
for
it would
sure.
be a party, and, like, just to be able to, like, cry with her and laugh with her and, like, babysit Samuel for sometimes, just, like, help her out, I think would be such a good way to, like, establish that strong friendship and relationship, yeah.
That's a good one,
I
and I
know.
think, like, it's certainly someone to relate to even in, like, difficult times, like, God will make a way.
Mhm.
Might not be your way, your time, but it'll be his way and his time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what's the phrase I always say? God's time is always perfect, but never easy.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think that's a great reminder of the beauty in the waiting season if something was to come or not.
Right, right. Because she was fully ready to, like, "All right, Lord, like, if it's not your will, I won't have a kid, but if you do give me a child, like, I will give him back to you, I
Mhm.
will raise him in the right way," and that's just it's so powerful to me to think of having a friend that would do that and, like, to follow through with it too,
Mhm.
like, you would make promises and then not follow through with them because that happens a lot, but obviously for Hannah, that was like, "No, I'm going to raise this child to love the Lord because he gifted me and blessed me with this child." It's
Mhm.
so cool.
Like
Yeah.
that loyalty, like you said, is so important. And I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes can be so rare in this world.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like when you find those loyal friends, it's like you want to keep those ones close.
Yeah. Yeah. And Hannah's a cute name.
Man, is a cute name. Forwards and backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Oh,
is that
that's true.
called?
I don't know.
You're a teacher, so you know
I'm not an
this?
English teacher.
Well, didn't you have to learn how to teach English?
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
I was a communications major, so I feel like I should
Right.
know that too.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago.
All right, so we've got Noah, we've got Simon Peter, we've got Hannah. Who's your
Pete.
next one?
We're
Pete.
calling him Pete.
Pete.
We got Pete.
Petey boy.
Pete. All right. Retract that one. All right. My round 2 pick would be Ruth. And we did a study on Ruth. Didn't we?
I
Yeah, we
thought
did.
yeah.
I talked a little bit
You
about
did.
Ruth.
Yep, yep.
In the relationship
I think it was. Yep, yep.
that was called
To the one? Or was that a different one?
Yes, to the one.
Yeah.
That was it. Good job. I was like, I should know this. We wrote this.
Blinking.
But I focused on Ruth and like relating to her, like in her her humility of God's timing, and that's something that one I so struggle with. That I literally like y'all are seeing this on the video, like have pages, especially this particular page of just notes. And I mean, there's more to that, but she's been a character in the Bible that I feel like I related to so much just because of things that I've gone through in my own life of waiting, but also things that like totally like 180 turned. And I was like, what? And she's just someone who has embodied surrender,
Mhm.
which is so hard.
Yeah.
And I also admire that in Ruth and like strive to be Ruth in the sense of surrendering over different situations in our life to like give space for Jesus to move and show his power.
Mhm.
And I've preached on this before is like, you know, Ruth could have just like left space for Jesus to move.
Mhm.
She could have just been like, all right, whatever, like I'm just gonna like move back and it'll be what it'll be. And but she was surrendering her life over to Jesus of like, okay, I'm gonna go and like get the wheat and like help
Mhm.
support my mother-in-law. And then she
Mhm.
met Boaz and they got married, and that was like a divine faithfulness of God's timing
Mhm.
in relationship.
Mhm.
But it was her act of surrender and actually the physical spiritual sense of giving space for Jesus rather than
Mhm.
just like letting it be, which
Mhm.
sometimes you do just have to like let it be. But it's that act that Jesus is like, I want you to act upon this surrender
Mhm.
and give it to me. Like actually give it to me. Not just say it, but actually give it. And that she does a beautiful job in doing that. And just like the way that she like is just so caring and humble and just the showing of God's like providence and everything. How can you not love her?
Yeah,
Like
I feel like
truthfully.
she's the one that you could call at no matter what time of day, and she's gonna pick up and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, just, like,
Yes.
super caring and sincere too, you know, like, she followed Naomi because she was sincere and she wasn't faking it. You know, there's people like that are flaky too, but Ruth was definitely not that kind of person.
She was certainly someone who walked with the Lord and like knowing that, you know what, everything kind of similarly to Hannah in a way, like
Mhm,
everything is
mhm.
in your timing.
Right.
And she knew that. And she lived her life by that.
Mhm,
And that's certainly a challenge. Like, I mean, I think we say this time and time again on the podcast, like God's time is always perfect, never easy. And
mhm.
I think all these Bible characters, you
Yeah.
know, even Noah having to be on the ark
Oh,
for
right.
forever and a half
Yeah, with his family
with his family
and
and all the
stinky
animals
animals, yeah.
and all the things and
Right. Oh.
just the timing of building an ark and, you know, Peter and the timing of like the timing and the coming of the Messiah too.
Mhm,
Cause like it
mhm.
wasn't until like right when Jesus was like Peter's the rock I'm showing to build my church where he was like, who do you say I am?
Right.
And he was like, you're the Messiah.
Yeah.
And like that took a lot of time to get there.
Right, right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it. Jesus fed the 5,000. They got in the boat and they were like, Jesus, why are you napping?
Yeah.
And it's like, did you see what he did back here? Like,
Mhm.
why are you being so foolish? But then he was like, Jesus, you're the Messiah.
Yeah.
Like, that took
Yeah.
time.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, I can't wait to talk to all these people in heaven. It's gonna be
Honestly, I have so many
amazing.
questions.
Be
I'm
like
like, gotta see my buddy Pete. Gotta see my buddy Pete.
we did a podcast episode about you, maybe you heard about it.
Right. Hopefully you heard about it because
Yeah.
it was really great. Well, any other friends that you can think of? Do we have some last minute round 3 picks?
Mm. Uh,
Obviously, Jesus is a given.
that's true, that's true. I think, like, Paul, I'd like to talk to him too as he was Saul and be like, hey, how was that transition for you? You were persecuting Christians and now you're like one of
What was
Jesus's
the whole
biggest fans.
blinding thing like?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
physicality part of that.
Right, right. I think
Was it
just
painful?
I know it's like the story in the Bible is written word for word, and different narratives, but to like talk to Paul and be like, okay, how was that, and actually pick his brain, I think would be pretty cool. I don't know if we'd be besties, but we'd be like close acquaintances.
It's not like your inner circle, but
Yeah,
like your
yeah, yeah.
close circle.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I would honestly love to talk to Matthew
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of, you think of the Gospels and Matthew is like such a well documented book of
I like
Jesus'
that book. Yeah,
life. And
yeah.
like, especially like going back to The Chosen, like Matthew in The Chosen was like talking about how like sometimes Jesus just like gives him this look and he knows he's supposed to write that down.
Mm,
And I was like, I just want to like know, like, how did you know what to write when? Like,
yeah,
was it a look? Was it like he was like, write this down?
yeah.
Or like, did you all talk about it afterwards? And
Mm-hmm.
because it was such a beautiful, like, I mean, especially those Bibles where it has like the red letter
Yep,
Bibles,
yep.
like Matthew, it's red, red,
Right,
like,
right.
and it would be so cool to be like, what was your like thought process? Because you also think like, Matthew didn't walk on water. He like, I feel like he didn't really necessarily do like all the like cool things that Peter did,
Right,
like
right.
walking on water and things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he also did the coolest thing of documenting
Right.
the life and ministry of
What was
Jesus,
happening?
which I
Mm-hmm.
think goes kind of unseen in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And you're like, how was that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and to then like get it all written out and like sharing that with the disciples and sharing it with those around, and especially once it was done,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
would be
Ooh,
so cool.
that'd be so cool.
That'd be my round 3 pick.
Perfect.
Would
I
be
like that.
Matthew.
There we go. Good, well-rounded people.
Good. I know. We have a really cool group of people. Well, friends, short and little sweet episode. I really hope that you were able to, one, relate to some things that are going on in your life to one of the characters. And
Mhm.
if you did relate to Peter or Noah or Ruth, like I encourage you to go and read their story. Every single one of these Bible characters in their walk with Jesus and their coming to understand faith in their situations, like is a mirror to things that we can relate to here in our own life.
Mhm.
And whether that's just the needing for guidance, the needing for answers, or just like struggling and struggles, but also like the joy and happiness of certain things or doubt. Like there's so much in there. You think of Thomas, like
Yeah.
they call him Doubting Thomas, and like to read to that whole part of the episode as well, or Bible.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to just like sit and like say like how do I relate to this character?
Mhm. Mhm. That application,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I so encourage you, like, get in the Bible, like, who's your favorite character? Head on over to our Instagram, like, we wanna know who your favorite Bible character is, and see if we got some commonalities and some common themes, or if
Mhm.
there was someone, maybe someone does relate to, like, Adam
Judas? Oh.
or Eve
Oh, I
or
said
Judas, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's out of the
I know,
question.
I know.
It's out of the question. He was also very human,
Yep.
and he was one of the disciples, and, like, to
Mhm.
think through that whole thing. That's a whole
Oh,
other
boy.
episode. I'm like, I'm about to go preach the gospel right about now, but
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna hold back on it. But yes, head on over onto our Instagram. We want to know what your favorite Bible character is, someone that you relate to, that you would like to ask 1,000,000,000 questions when you get to heaven. And Jenny, we don't really have an action item other than that for this week,
I
unless
think
you
that's
can
a
think of
great action
something.
item. Yeah, it's just cool to see the Bible as, like, living word, and, like, these were real people, like, and
Hmm.
just to, like, pick their brain and, like, read their journal entries, like, I just think that's so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
So, y'all know your action plan for this week. We cannot wait to hear from you, and we'll see you back here in a few weeks. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and rate our show to stay up to date on our latest episode releases. We'd love to hear from you, so head on over to our website or the gram, say hi, be encouraged, and join the movement as we continue to boldly seek after Jesus together. We'll see you next time on the Between the Pages podcast.